A hulking dude won the NCAA D1 Women's Swimming and Diving Championship over the weekend, and now everyone is pretending to care about women's sports. And they are doing that because it's the most socially acceptable way to criticize transgenderism. So now people get to say, I'm not anti-trans, and people should totally be able to do whatever they want, but this is wrong because this is not fair to girls. True, it is not fair to girls, but that is not the point. The problem with transgenderism is not that it makes it complicated to engage in college swim meets. The problem with transgenderism is that it's a false account of human nature that encourages delusion, psychosis, and self-mutilation. That's the problem. People are making this issue way more complicated than it actually is. Either the transgender belief that men can secretly be women and vice versa is correct, or it isn't. Obviously, it isn't. So then why are we restructuring our law and our politics and our culture according to a premise that every single sensible person in the entire world knows is absurd? There's an answer. It's not just a hypothetical question. I actually think I know the answer. The answer has to do with our national obsession with openness and permissiveness. It has to do with our confusing liberty with licentiousness. Licentiousness, just the fulfillment of any appetite that you've got. This is a confusion that our founding fathers, like many other wise men throughout history, warned us would completely sink our republic. We want to be open to everything. We want to tolerate everything. We want to be really nice. We don't want to be closed-minded. That's the worst thing you can be. Illiberal. That's the worst thing you can possibly be. And so a lot of people want to split the baby on transgenderism by encouraging it in some circumstances, but not in others. And the way that they do this is by using the language of individualism. They'll say, listen here, if a man wants to wear a dress and call himself Sally, well, by golly, that's his right. That's none of my business. So I have no right to infringe on that. But he can't infringe on my rights or the rights of those girls who are swimming. This strategy has never worked, and it will never work because the man's alleged right to pretend to be a woman necessarily infringes on our right in society to treat men as men and women as women. We live in a society. These rights, quote unquote rights, affect real rights that we've all got. The man's quote unquote right to pretend to be a woman infringes on women's right to have their own bathrooms, infringes on our right to call people by their correct pronouns, infringes on the girl swimmer's right to compete against women in the NCAA championship. There is only one way to stop transgenderism. That is to oppose it entirely. The whole thing. For young people, for old people, on this continent, on another, the whole thing. There is no natural or constitutional or civil right to fantasy. And there is nothing compassionate about encouraging disturbed people to indulge their destructive delusions. Yes, it's unfair that transgender ideology permitted William Leah Thomas to take a trophy away from a young woman at a swimming competition. But it's unfair because it's unjust, and it's unjust because it's based on a lie. If you recognize that something is wrong with this picture, then stop pussyfooting around the issue. The only way to stop this madness is to stop tolerating the ideology of transgenderism in all times, in all places, full stop. A picture tells 1,000 words. And that picture of William Thomas, who goes by the name Leah, standing on the podium with his championship prize, and then you've got number 2 and number 3. There was another photo where it's just the actual girls sort of crowding around, taking a photo of 1, 2, 3. William Thomas completely on the side. It tells you everything you need to know. There was another photo of Thomas wearing his women's swimming suit, and lots of things were clear from that photo. Okay, lots of philosophical things, anatomical things. It was just preposterous. And Will Thomas, at the women's swimming competition, gave an interview afterward to say what this meant to him.
I can't tell you how free I feel now that I've started identifying as a woman. Now that I can compete as female, I'm ready to smash the other girls.
And is it correct you just started identifying as female 2 weeks ago?
I'm not here to talk about my transition. I'm here to kick some ass. Let me tell you something, Dingleberry.
David Perry.
I'm gonna roll up the other women here, and I'm gonna smoke them. I am the strongest woman this state has ever seen.
Sorry, that was a clip from South Park, which predicted this exact thing that would happen. And back then it was a joke and it was satire. And now it's become reality because satire is completely dead. Here is the clip of actual Will Thomas at the women's swimming competition.
You've undoubtedly been under the spotlight over the past few months. How have you been dealing with that and reasoning with everything?
I try to ignore it as much as I can. I try to focus on my swimming, what I need to do to get ready for my races, and just try to block out everything else.
I just try to block out everything else, like reality. That's what he's blocking out. What's amazing about the clip is, and you're lucky that you didn't have to see the lower half, it's obvious that he's a man. In some cases with transgenderism, there are enough perverts in the scientific community that they'll poke and prod and shoot you full of hormones and chop things off and give you cosmetic surgery that it's not always totally 100% clear if a person is a man or a woman because of all the crazy interventions that people have now. But in this case, it's just totally clear. He's a dude. He's a hulking dude with super broad shoulders, with all of his anatomical features that he has had since the day he was born, with a relatively deep voice, just talking like a guy. The only thing that he sort of did was grow his hair out a little bit and then put it in a swimming cap anyway. There is no question here that he's a guy. And so they say, well, what do you make of the criticism that you're cheating these girls out of their trophies? What do you make of the criticism that this is wrong and unfair and unjust? And he says, I just block it out. And that's all we're doing. And this is not just a Will Thomas problem. This is not just a girls' collegiate swimming problem. This is a society problem, is that when deluded people in this society come across a fact that they don't like, they not only want to block it out, but increasingly they can block it out. Because we're so isolated now, the structures of community that used to keep us somewhat tethered to reality, the family, the civil society, the government for that matter, they've broken those tethers. And so now you can sit on your phone, scroll all day long, go into ever more fantastical, delusional communities and be affirmed in your crazy, incorrect beliefs. Then you can go to your various affinity groups and gain political power, and then force this stuff to try to manipulate reality. So you go and you say, look, there's a whole group of us who we're convinced now that men are actually women, and so we're going to completely change women's sports. And the craziest part is, because our society doesn't have anything to stand on anymore, because we've rejected theology and philosophy and even the existence of objective truth, the coaches and the administrators and the schools go along with this crap, and the government goes along with it too, and now guarantees it. What do you do when you hear criticism? Well, I just block it out. Of course you block it out. And I'm not necessarily criticizing Will Thomas. I actually have this, I don't think it's likely, but I do have this strange thought. I thought, what if this guy's just a performance artist? What if this guy is doing a super deep performance where he's showing the absurdity of transgenderism, because he's a hulking dude. He beats all the women in the swimming matches. He tunes out the criticism. He exposes society for being completely incoherent on this issue. And then at the end of his college career, he gets out. He's like, guys, what were you thinking? I'm obviously a man. Why would you give me the women's trophy? This is wrong. Look at you. Look at what's become of you. I don't think that's likely, but it certainly could be for everything that we know about this. Let's say that he is sincere. Let's say that he really does think that he's a woman. That should be a cause for our compassion and empathy and pity, and we should try to convince him of reality instead of telling a disturbed individual that all of his delusions are real and encouraging him down a path that is destructive, not only for himself, not only for those girls who didn't get their trophy because he was beating them because he's a dude, but for all of society as well. You know what's really destructive to your time and money? Driving to the brick and mortar auto parts store. That's why you got to go to rockauto.com. Go to Rock Auto today. This whole show is going to be taken offline today, right? There's no question it's going to be taken offline because it's called hateful conduct. It's violating Twitter's and YouTube's and Facebook's rules if you state basic truths now. At the very least, we're told we have to couch these basic truths. So you've got to, you can't call a man who thinks he's a woman a man. You've got to say, well, he's a biological man, as though there were some other kind of man.